Hi friends, welcome back to Foster Care Friday. Today I'm going to be answering another question that I usually see a lot of in some of the foster care, foster parent support group Facebook pages that I'm on. So if you are interested in knowing what some questions are that you should be asking as a foster parent, when you get that phone call, yes, that phone call, the phone call for a placement, a child that needs a foster family to live with, what sorts of questions you should be asking from one foster mom's perspective. So if that interests you, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel down below. I guess I totally forgot to do my intro. Like, I'm all out of whack. It's been a couple weeks since I've done a video. So if you're new here, let me introduce myself. My name is Anna Leonora. Together with my husband, Jason, we are foster parents in real life. And here on my channel from the Fosters, we do foster parenting life together. And we raise awareness for the foster care system. So if any of that interests you, please consider, I don't know, I've already said it. Like, subscribe, all the things. Before I get into some of the questions that I ask when we get a phone call, I just want to show you guys something. It's been a couple weeks. So for the people who've been following me for a while, I do have a couple updates that I'm not quite ready to share yet. I just want to give them a little bit more time. We have one really exciting update and one not as exciting update. And I will share those when I'm ready. Yeah, so there's that. There have been some changes and some updates, and there's some reasons why we have not been, and by we, I mean me, because my husband doesn't really do this with me, why I have not been as active on this page in a couple of weeks. One of the things I want to show you guys, just so that we can like relate to each other, is that I am a full-time working mom. My husband works full-time. Right now we have one child in the hospital who's going to be okay, but there is a child in the hospital right now. So we have been alternating going to visit at the hospital while also the other person stays home to watch the little kids, and it's just been, whew. So I'm going to show you guys my living room. Right now it's kind of blocked by me, but I just want you to like feel my pain of things that we need to do. So I'm going to give you like a quick, yeah, this laundry's been sitting here for well over a week. Here's all these little magnet toys, trucks, laundry, blankets, wine, cause you know, just a total mess. And like, there's even more on the other side of the camera. It's bad, like bad. My house is a mess. We have plans to clean it up this weekend, but yeah, so this is what I'm working with. It's very chaotic energy in here, and there's been a lot happening. It's been a couple weeks since I filmed, so you guys are gonna have to forgive me because, as you know, I have ADHD, and when my life is chaotic, my ADHD is more chaotic, and so I will be all over the place. But let's get into the video. The reason that you're here, questions that I ask as a foster mom when I get a placement phone call from a social worker. There are, I want to preface this by saying that every family is going to have a different set of questions. You have to figure out what questions are important to you, what sorts of things you personally need to know about a child to know whether or not they're going to fit in with your family or if you're going to be a good fit as a foster parent for that child. These are just the questions that I ask and the things that are important to my husband and myself and what's going to fit in our family. But also you have to keep in mind that a lot of these questions, they're not going to know the answers to. It doesn't hurt to ask, because if they do know the answer, then you're getting an answer to a question. But you'll see. So There are two types of phone calls you may receive. One is a child newly coming into care. So a brand new case, brand new child coming into care. They're going to know far less about that child than scenario number two, which is a child who is already in foster care, but for some reason needs a new foster family. And that can be for a lot of different reasons. Maybe it's not a good fit. Maybe they're trying to find a home where they can put siblings that have been separated together. Maybe a foster family is moving or closing their license for other reasons. There are all kinds of reasons why a child might be moved. So those are the two calls you're going to get. If a child's being moved from another foster family, they will have more information on that child than a child newly coming into care. Again, I always ask the questions. They may not know the answers, but it's worth asking. I kind of separate it out just to keep myself straight, because you never know when you're going to get that call, and you don't always have like a notebook with you that has the questions answered. So for me, it's easiest to just go through a couple categories in my head and ask the questions. Every agency will tell you things a little bit differently, but I will tell you my agency typically will only tell you how many children and ages and genders. Sorry, there's a cat over here, and there's a storm coming, so I'm like all over the place. Ages, number of children, ages, gender, and sometimes they'll give you like, this is a new child coming into care, or this child's in another home, we need to find a new home for them. They'll give you like a little snippet of something. The first thing I do is I go through physical things. So to some people, things like gender, age, race, or ethnic background, there are some foster families that have limits on that, and there's nothing wrong with that. My family does not. So age, gender, ethnic background doesn't really matter to me typically. I will say that right now, those things would matter to us, but only because my boys' room is full. So technically we are licensed for 4. Technically we have 3 at the moment, 2 boys and 1 girl. So the only bed that I have open is a girl's bed at the moment. So when we have no kids in the house, none of that matters to me. But to keep kids in the room together, there are rules around that. And I've made another video about that a long time ago. But because my boys' room is full, right now the only bed I have is in the girls' room. So right now it would matter whether the child was male or female, and the child would have to be within 5 years age of the girl that is currently in that room. So right now it matters. Typically it does not, but just because it doesn't normally matter to us doesn't mean that it doesn't matter to somebody else. People who have biological children or only feel comfortable dealing with a certain age range, or maybe it's a single mom and she only feels comfortable with girls. You know, whatever the situation may be, that is for every foster family to determine. Again, it's not one that normally matters to us, but right now, because we do have other children, it matters only in the sense that, like, to abide by the rules, there's only a certain gender within a certain age group that we could accept right now. So I always cover those bases. If they don't provide that for me, I cover those bases. I don't typically ask ethnic background. And when I say I don't typically ask that, I never ask that, but there are some people who do, and that's okay. You know, there are people who only want to foster children of their same ethnic background. That's fine. I don't ask that question because that's not going to be a determining factor for me. I will ask if they have like religious, if their family has a religious preference, but I'll get into that later. But as far as like race, ethnicity, doesn't matter to me, so I don't ask it, but some people do. So just keep that in mind. Also physical, I ask if they have any physical disabilities. I ask if they're on any medications. I ask if they have any diagnoses, you know, any allergies to anything. And just any other like physical considerations. We did our very first placement that we got was cricket and grasshopper. and one of them had a broken leg. So we needed to know there's a cast on one leg because one leg is broken. So, things like that I just need to know about physicality wise. I'll also ask, what size they are or how big they are, what size clothing they wear. Are they in diapers? What size diaper they wear? Just physicality so that I know what I need to make sure my home is ready for that child. I go into behavioral. When you become a foster parent, they will have you go through types of behaviors, types of trauma, and you'll learn a little bit about each of it. And you have to determine as a foster parent, what of that you can handle and what of that you don't think you can handle. And that's super important because nobody can handle it all, right? I don't know any foster family that doesn't have some specifications. There are people who can't handle teenagers, but there are other people who only do teenagers. So something that you may lack the ability to handle, another family, that might be a strength for them. So there's no shame in knowing what you can't deal with. I won't list what me and my husband's particular behaviors are because that is unique to my family, but there are very particular behaviors that we have not yet run into, thankfully, but there are particular behaviors that we don't feel would be something that we could handle, something that we would be able to provide a safe home and situation for children with those behaviors. The reality is we do have little kids in our home. We do have animals in our home. We do work full time. So there are just certain things that our life would not be able to be a supportive environment for children of certain needs. So there are certain behaviors that we can't accept. If they're known, we ask it. We've never come across it, but it happens. So behaviors, I ask if there's been any known aggression towards other kids. Again, we have children in the house. I ask about siblings. Are they coming with siblings or do they have experience living around other siblings? Do they have experience around animals and treating animals well? Do they have any mental health diagnoses? Are they in any therapies? Any medications, again, for mental health and behaviors? So that's one that I go through. I go through family beliefs, like is there a religion the family follows? Is there a particular diet the family follows? For example, people who are strict with Judaism might eat a kosher diet. And again, I haven't run into that particular situation yet, but if we were to get a child whose family was strictly, let's say, Jewish, and they wanted their child to maintain a kosher diet, well, we're going to have to do some research to try to make that happen for that kid, right? Because I'm not kosher and I don't know much about being kosher. So I would need to do the research to figure out if that's something that's feasible within my life that I already have going. So I will ask about things like that. Or are there any holidays, traditions, just other daily practices that I need to know about, that the family is really important to them, to their religion, to their heritage, to their traditions, whatever. I will ask that. I'm trying to think. With age, another important thing that I've learned to ask is that you should also ask for birthday. We have been told that a child was a month old and they ended up being 3 months old. And while that doesn't matter that much at that age, you might be told that a child is 3 years old, but maybe their birthday's in a week, so they're about to be 4. Or let's even bump it up a year. Let's say that you can only take children that are not school age. You can't do school, or you've chosen not to do school, whatever the issue may be. And the child they call you and say, oh, the child's 5, but if you don't ask date of birth, maybe they have a birthday in a week and they're going to end up having to go to school in a couple weeks or something like that. Also, when it comes to ages sharing a bedroom, like if I have a 12-year-old and the girl has to be within 5 years of that, and let's say I'm told that she is 18. Let's say it's a girl who's going through 21 or something, but her birthday's in, a week and she's about to be 19. Well, my 12-year-old doesn't turn 13 for another 6 months. Are they still going to be allowed to share a room? You see what I'm saying? Like, because then they're more than 5 years apart. So I always ask about date of birth, just because sometimes DSS doesn't quite get their age right. Definitely ask about behaviors. That's one that a lot of them are not going to know the answer to unless they've already been in care. But if it's a child newly coming into care, behaviors is really not going to be, something that they will know much about. I also ask about reason for removal. That one's tough because the social workers are only going to be able to give you so much information. But I want to know, was this a case of neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, drug use by the parents? I want to know a little bit about the situation so that I can prepare how I need to parent that child, right? If this is a child who is in a home with a lot of domestic violence, well, now I know I need to try to talk to the other kids in the home about not doing too much yelling or screaming until we really get this child settled in and know what their triggers are. Things like that. There's just things that can be triggers for children, and I just want to know about them. Like if a child's parent maybe struggles with an alcohol addiction, well, I like to drink wine at the end of a day. So if I know a child's coming into my home and they're going to have trauma around their parents having an alcohol addiction, maybe I'm going to not drink wine for a little bit until we know how that child's going to react and if that would be a trigger for them. You know what I'm saying? So I like to ask those kinds of questions. What are they coming into care for? If they're already in care and they're being moved, what are they being moved for? What's the disruption in placement about? There may be a specific reason that is something that you can't handle, like they're being disrupted because they hurt another child in the home that was younger than them and you have young children or something like that. Or maybe it's just that the foster parents are moving and they just need somewhere else for this child to go, things like that. I ask if this particular child or family has any DSS involvement history. I like to know, has the child been in and out of care? Is this their first time in care? Or is this like old hat for them? That can tell you some things. Do we have any family members already lined up that we're going to be vetting? Or has DSS worked with this family in the past and known that there are not going to be any family members approved, so this will be a longer term case? Things like that, just to give you an idea of how long the child might be with you. We've had several times children come to us and DSS was able to say, hey, look, they've got family that's working to try to get them. So this might not be that long term. And then it's like, great, wonderful. Do what you got to do to get their family members approved. We will just support them and care for them in the meantime. And we've had kids as little as, 6 days before they went to a family member. We had another that went to a family member after a month and a half, things like that. But we've also been told about cases in the past, like, look, this family has a long history with DSS. We've already vetted all of their family members. None of them have passed our checks. So we really don't foresee any kinship being able to step forward. This is the child's third time in care, so we don't think reunification is going to be an option. This might be a really long-term placement. Things like that I want to know about. That's not going to make me say yes or no necessarily, but I just want to know, to help me mentally prepare to take on this child. Those are kind of the biggest ones. I did mention allergies, and when it comes to allergies, that means food, medicines, animals, seasonal. I want to know all the allergies because, again, I don't want to do anything that's going to place anyone in harm's way. I mean, we eat a lot of peanut butter in this house because I have 2 little boys who are obsessed with it. So we have peanut butter on everything and there's peanut butter everywhere. So like if a child has a very severe nut allergy, we are probably not the right family to have that child. If there's a child who's allergic to cat dander, we have a lot of cats. So that's, again, not going to be the right fit for us. So I ask all of these questions. Like I said, a lot of them are going to go unanswered. They're going to say, I don't know, or they're going to give you something very vague. But on the off chance that they have the answers to those questions, then you're gaining a piece of information that could be helpful in determining if this is going to be a good fit for the child, if this is going to be a good fit for the foster parents, and if you're going to be able to accept the placement or not. But also a piece of information just to help you in caring for that child. So those are kind of the biggies. I think this video has been long enough. I would love to leave the comment section below open so that people can add any questions that I may have missed or any questions that they specifically ask so that people can kind of scroll and get some more ideas. Again, you need to figure out what questions are important to you, what sorts of things are going to make sense in your decision-making toolkit. And honestly, the more of these phone calls you get, it just kind of becomes second nature to ask certain questions. But in the beginning, I did have a sheet of paper that I had written out, and I would keep it in a folder nearby. And if my phone ever rang with a placement, I would open it and start asking the questions. But now I just kind of know them. You'll get used to it. You'll get used to asking the questions. The more you foster, the more you will understand what you can and cannot handle and what sorts of information you need to be able to make that decision, the best decision for you and your family. And just remember, I've said this before, I'll say it again. It feels awful to say no to a child that needs a family. It's such a horrible feeling to say no, but it's okay. And actually, it can be better for the child and better for you. If there's a situation that you know you cannot handle, you know is not going to be the right fit for your family, if you say no, that allows the agency to keep calling other people and find the right fit. But if you say yes and they come to you and form attachments and bonds, and then it doesn't work out, and then you have to move them again, that's just another trauma that child's experiencing, another broken attachment. So it's actually highly encouraged that you do know what you can't handle so that you can say no to those placements. But that doesn't make it any easier. It's certainly hard to say no, and it can be heartbreaking, but ultimately it's in everybody's best interest. All that being said, like I said, if you think of any other questions to ask when you receive a placement call from a social worker, leave them down below. The comments are open so people can have cordial discussions as always. Again, I do have some updates. It'll probably be a couple of weeks before I'm ready to share them. Things are just kind of fresh right now. There's some good and some not great, so we'll get there. In the meantime, I need to go clean my house. But yeah, again, as always, thanks for bearing with me. It's been a rough couple weeks, but I am hoping that now that things have kind of fallen into place, we'll get back on track with our lives, and I'll be able to share more with you all later. I love you. Until next time, go out, continue to shine your light into the world. Bye.